So what happened here?
About 5 or 6 deer just came running right through the white pines over there. Came straight down. Most of them hung a left that way, but one decided to go right through the window. Ducked low.
And it ducked low, came through the window and into the shop. That's nuts.
Yeah, unfortunately, it looks like it cut one of its hoofs.
Well, if you look at the other door here, you can see that it must have came through. How did it get out of the shop?
We opened up the doors and it took off.
Oh. Look at its snout hit the door.
Ah, shit.
Here.
Johnny should have kept the door. Johnny let him out.
That is crazy. I just finished charging my Equinox EV here at the store, and I want to show you something that's pretty cool. As you can see here, my Equinox EV is rated at 307 miles of range per charge. Now, I just charged it to 100%, and check it out. We are sitting at an estimate of 342 miles. Now, that's obviously great, right? You would love to get more range out of your car, but is that completely realistic? Realistically, it's probably not. The main 3 things that are going to affect your range with an electric vehicle is the temperature, the terrain you're driving on, and your technique of driving. Now, I consider myself a professional wheelman, so the technique is always going to be the best. I'm going to use one pedal driving. I'm going to use my regen on demand paddle when I need it. I basically drive at a level of comfort where I'm going to use air conditioning if I need it. I'm going to use heat if I need it. I'm not going to suffer as far as comfort to get more range. And the reason is I'm not driving anywhere where I really have to worry about range. I don't have the experiences of range anxiety because I'm not taking this car on any kind of a road trip. Personally, I'm driving maybe 20, 25 miles. So I can drive it a number of days in a row. I can plug it in when I want at work and charge it back up to 100% and, you know, just go from there. One thing I would like to point out here, if I go to vehicle status and I go to my energy info, you're going to see that I've averaged 3.4 miles per kilowatt. Now, there's no mileage recorded because once I charged it to 100%, it reset this. But this was at 805 miles since the last time I fully charged the car. Now, when I say fully charge, I mean to 100%. Sometimes I'll just top the car off, right? You drive it to 40, you fill it to 70. You just keep it in the middle. So 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. If I take that and I multiply it by 85 kilowatt hours, which is the size of the battery, that's going to give me an estimated range of about 289 miles that I should get on a charge based on that average. So you might be asking yourself, well, hey, Dave, why is it giving you 3.4 miles per kilowatt average, which is 289 miles, and it's showing you 341 or 342 on your estimate screen here? Isn't that some sort of a conflict of interest in a sense? Wouldn't that cause any confusion? And it really doesn't, because this number here is going to update in real time based on how you're driving the vehicle, whereas this one here is an average, and again, it doesn't show now, but it was over 805 miles. So in that 805 miles, maybe I drove a lot of highway, maybe I was doing less around town driving, things of that nature, whereas when you're driving lower speeds, you're getting better range out of the car. If we look at my trip odometer, this is really going to blow your mind. Notice that since I own the vehicle, I have 3,630 miles on the vehicle. You'll notice we're showing an average of 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour. If you look at that as a realistic average of what I'm getting real time, that's 204 miles on the battery, which people are going to say, well, that's 100 miles less than you should be getting. I definitely don't want an EV car. But when I first leased this vehicle, we were in the middle of winter and we had some colder temps than we normally have here in New Jersey. I think we were like single digits for a number of days in a row. That's why this number is off a little bit and it's not giving me a proper average. I would literally have to drive the car for an entire year to get my real average based on the seasons we have here in New Jersey, because again, temperature could affect the range you're getting out of your car. What I'm going to do now actually is I'm going to reset trip 2. I'm going to zero it out and let's clear it. You can see right there, it already popped up with 3.4. Let's see, based on whatever driving I'm doing, temperature outside, how I use the climate control, all those different parameters, let's see what I get on the mileage I'm going to drive with this full charge. I can actually tell you a funny story of range anxiety, because I did experience that once with this vehicle. But when I tell you it was completely my fault, it was literally completely my fault. So I got a couple pictures I can show you sort of as like supporting documents to the story. And I'll run through it real quick with you just so you can kind of see what happened and also give you examples of how I could have prevented what happened. If you've watched my channel for any length of time, you know I am a big fan of the electric powertrain. It works perfectly for me. I've had 2 Chevrolet Volts, I've had 2 Chevrolet Bolts, and now I'm on the Equinox EV. About a month into owning this vehicle, around mid-February, I picked up a friend of mine and we were going to the American Dream Mall. That's by the Meadowlands. It's a big, humongous mall. It has like an amusement park in it. And we were just going to walk around, see what it was like, hang out for a while, maybe grab some lunch. Now, while driving there, I noticed the range was depleting faster than normal, and it was because it was a very cold day. It was like below 20 degrees. And in cold weather, you're gonna get less range than you're used to. But I think I had like 80 miles or so on the estimated amount. We went to the mall. When we got there, I passed a whole bunch of Tesla superchargers that were in the parking garage. However, I did not yet have the Tesla adapter. So I just parked the car in the parking lot. We went into the mall. A few hours later, we got out of the mall and we're thinking, what do you want to do? Let's go to Dave & Buster's. Let's check that out. We can play some games. We could have some drinks. That's about 20 miles away. So we get in the car, we start driving. Well, that 80 miles I had earlier in the day after driving to the mall and now driving towards the Dave & Buster's was getting depleted to like 50, 40 miles. And I still had to be able to get to work in the morning, which was about a 16, 17 mile drive. So I knew I was getting to the point that I needed to charge the car. But I figured no big deal. Right by the Dave & Buster's is a Target that has chargers. I'll just go there. The charge rate on this car is pretty quick. You can get about 70 to 80 miles worth of charge in a 10-minute session on a 150 kilowatt charger, which I know the ones at that Target are like 350. So it would have been a perfect spot to stop and charge. The problem is when I got there, all the chargers were being used. So I pulled over and parked, and I figured let's just wait and see how long these people will be on the charger, which when you're waiting, you really have no idea. So after waiting a few minutes, I said, you know what, let's just go to Dave & Buster's. We'll hang out there. Once we're done, we'll take a ride back here. It's only right around the corner. We'll try again. Sure enough, we did that, and guess what? All the chargers were still full, and now this time there were cars waiting. Now, I think it's very important to point out at this point in time, so far, I have not experienced range anxiety yet. This was more of just time anxiety. Do I want to wait and spend my time here not knowing how long I would be? Let me just go to the next charger. I know I'll make it. I know I have enough battery in the car. And that's exactly what I decided to do. I said, you know what, let's go back down to where you live. There's a Shannon Rose over there. We can stop in, have a drink over there, and charge at the Target that's there. So we drove down to that location, and sure enough, there were like 5 or 6 cars, again, waiting in line for the 5 or 6 people that are currently charging, which again, not range anxiety, time anxiety. At this point on the car, if I remember correctly, we had like less than 20 miles left on the car. I was like, listen, let's just go back to your house. We'll hang out there. I'll go back out at night. There's a shop right down the street that has chargers for EV Go. I'll go late, 10, 10:30. Again, I only have to be there for 10, 15 minutes to get more than enough battery to get to work in the morning, which we're talking 16, 17 miles away. So basically, I go back out around 10 o'clock at night to the chargers by the shop, right? Figured no one's gonna be there, it's late, and this is what I see. All the chargers are filled. Now, mind you, when I pulled up, there's a spot at this charging location where cars will kind of line up along the curb, and it was one car parked there. So when I got there, I pulled in behind that car to be next in line, in a sense, behind him to get to a charger once it opens up. What I didn't realize at the time was there were a couple more EVs there that were parked in parking spots, which ended up going behind me. So technically, there were cars there that were in line before me that I sort of cut off. But I did it because look at where I was as far as range. I got my orange battery indicator lit and I got my red letters that say low. At this point, it's not giving you a range anymore because you just have to charge. So you're kind of on your own as far as how much range you actually have left. You'll also notice on his gauge here, I'm at 2%. Now, if I was getting 2.4 miles per kilowatt hour because of the cold temperatures, that puts me at a little over 200 miles of range, which means I only had about 4 miles left on the car. It's also 22 degrees outside, so it's very cold. Now, I don't want to leave the vehicle running because if I leave it running and I deplete that 4 miles and that car turned off, now I have to call roadside to come help me, right? I can't put it in neutral. I can't push it because you have to have the car started to put in neutral. So essentially at that point, you need a flatbed to get somewhere. I don't know what you would do, to be honest. I don't know how you can push or drag the car, being I'm only like 20 feet away from the charger. Anyway, I decided to turn the car off and I sat there and I waited. about 45 minutes to charge at one of these locations. When I first pulled up, remember, I did have a car in front of me. I was optimistic, right? Because I saw the Cadillac Lyriq there. Cadillac Lyriq can charge fast. Maybe they're just there to top off. The car to the left of them was actually the car that was in front of me. That gentleman pulled up, plugged his car in, and had someone there to pick him up and just drove off. So he was leaving his car there, I guess, until it was full. The next one was the Chevrolet Bolt. The Chevrolet Bolt, if I remember correctly, had Maryland plates on it. So in my mind, I'm like, well, listen, this guy's gonna be charging for a while. He's going back to Maryland. In the reflection of his window, I can see the little indicator flashing, the one that flashes green up on the top of the dashboard of our Chevrolet EVs. And it was flashing twice, which means he was somewhere between 50 and 75%. So I knew he was gonna be there for a while. And the last car that was in line there, which was a white, I think it was a Volkswagen, that car had nobody in it either. It was just parked in that spot. So my main optimism of getting on a charger was the Cadillac. The Cadillac's gonna leave and I'm gonna get pulled in. Again, 45 minutes we had to wait. So it was a bit of a headache, I'm not gonna lie. Again, not range anxiety, time anxiety. Now I apologize, what really turned into a long story here. The Bolt ended up leaving. I pulled in that location, I plugged in, and I stayed there for I think 12 to 15 minutes. That was about it, just enough again so I can get home, I can get to work in the morning. Once I get to work, I plug in here. When I did finally get to pulling in charge, I looked over to my right to where the Cadillac was plugged in, and that's where I got slightly annoyed. Now, it's not necessarily the Cadillac owner's fault, they may not know, but as you can see here, they still had 16 minutes left on the charge. They're at 97%. Maybe their salesman never told them, but when you're on a fast charger and you're charging above 80, from 80 to 100, it dials down the charge very, very slowly to protect the battery. So that last 3%, like it shows it's taking 16 minutes, you'd be better off just driving off and going to the next charging location. Just keep charging up to 80% and then move on. Now, they may be reliant on public charging only, and that's why they're charging to 100%, and that's also why they were on that charger so long. The funniest thing is, I got on the charger, I took that picture when it had 16 minutes left, I left before they unplugged that car. It was just about at 100%. I was already on the road, and the next car was pulling up. Now, I know what my EV skeptics out there are going to say. This is why I don't want an electric car. I don't want to have to deal with this. And realistically, this whole situation was my fault. This was driver or user error, because I could have done some things to stop this from actually happening. First thing is, we could have took a gas car. There was a gas car in the driveway. We could have took that. We would have never had a problem. I would have had more than enough battery to get to work the next day. I would have charged here. The second thing I could have done was actually wait at one of the charging locations. I could have waited earlier in the day when it wasn't as cold. Maybe I would have lucked out and somebody would have got off the charger faster. You know, that's just the luck of the draw. I went to numerous charging locations, which shows up here in North Jersey, the infrastructure, although it's not the best, it's there. There was a charger at the Target by the Dave & Buster's, there was a charger at the Target by the Shannon Rose, and there was a charger at the ShopRite right down the street. So there's 3 chargers all within the general region where we were going that I could have waited at. Now, they were a little bit more busy because of the cold temperatures. When temperatures are cold and people are getting less range, they're stopping to charge more. But the number one thing I could have done that would have prevented all of this, if I still wanted to use the EV car, was buy my Tesla adapter, which I bought the next day when I got to work. With this adapter, I could have opened my little charge door here, removed my little plug the adapter in, and then use the Tesla charger that was at the mall at our original stop. For the few hours I was at the mall, if I had this and I plugged into one of those Tesla spots, I would have probably had the car pretty much completely full by the time we left the mall. None of this would have even been a story. So in conclusion, if you are looking and thinking about an EV vehicle for yourself, I would ask a couple questions. Can you charge it at home? Can you charge it at work? If you could do either one of those 2 things, you can probably make the vehicle work. The next question is, how many miles do you drive per day? That's going to tell you how often you'll have to charge your car at home or at work. And if you can't charge at home or at work, but you still want an electric vehicle, do your research. Figure out all the different charging locations, where you can charge in relation to where you always are, and just understand that sometimes they're going to be busy and you're going to have to wait. Now, I can't speak on behalf of the whole country, but in this area here, northern New Jersey, New York, this metro area, the infrastructure has picked up, and the fact that you can now plug these in on the Tesla network completely opens it up really nationwide, because the Tesla network is fantastic. I've been reading that in my comments for years, that people buy Tesla simply because of the infrastructure that they have set up, and now you can use it with a Chevrolet vehicle. And truly the best part of everything is, if you don't want EV, you don't like EV, it won't work for you, you live in an apartment, you can't charge it, you hate it, you don't want it, still buy a gas vehicle.